7 in Trinidad and Tobago as we see the traffic waiting for the green light in the area of the Central Market at along the highway via traffictt.com. But let's move back into studio for our next discussion. Well, we're looking ahead to November 24th, and it's been described as Jamal Shabazz as possibly a dangerous time leading up to the election. Is it similarly dangerous in the teaching fraternity? Because their elections are coming up next Tuesday, the 22nd. The Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association will be electing a new executive. We're joined on set by members of Team Renaissance. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term from the European Middle Ages and all of that, it's rebirth and so on. Is this about rebirth? What are they rebirthing? Is it that they're saying that tutor is dead and it needs to be rebirthed? Well, we have three personalities here to give us their perspectives on why they should get the vote of their colleagues come next Tuesday. We're joined by Antonia Tika de Freitas, who is the candidate for president. We also have with us Sharida Saga Ramnarine going up for the position of third vice president, and Eric Floyd, who is looking for the position of treasurer of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Good morning to you all. Thanks very much for joining us. So Ms. Tika de Freitas, just by the name that you have chosen, is tutor dead?
No, it's definitely not there, Fazir, and we saw evidence of that by the numbers of teachers who came out to the walkthrough Port of Spain on October the 1st, some time ago. Yeah. The issue of why we need to have changes in tutor, or choice of name of Renaissance, was simply because we realized that any relationship, you need to nurture it. You need to expend energy and time into making it grow and to go forward. And given the fact that within our teaching population, we have increasing number of millennials, for example, we wanted to ensure that the union was relevant to these members and to teachers and in the current 21st century labor climate.
I'll ask you to identify what are the main pillars of Team Renaissance in a moment, but if I could get the perspective of the other guests, Ms. Sharida Saga Ramnarine first and foremost. Why have you decided to come on board as a member of Team Renaissance? What do you think this team offers that is fundamentally different from the other challengers?
Okay, firstly, I am originally from the oil and gas service industry, where I spent 15 years. And after I had my first child, I thought I was coming to something a little bit slower with more time. So I decided I would teach because I always loved teaching as well. So I've been teaching for 14 years at Williamsville Secondary School. I'm a technical drawing teacher, textbook teacher. And the benefits are so limited for us teachers right now. And compared to the oil and gas industry where I came from, the service industry, we trained those persons there. All of them, their foundation is from teachers. And I couldn't believe that, we hardly had anything as teachers. So I decided I am going to change that. And Team Renaissance is a team for me to change that.
Why do you think you're going to be able to change that? Because we've seen different executives promising different things, and then next thing you know, they end up on the road marching and waving flags. Why do you feel it's going to be any different this time?
Because I've already started changing it. Over the August vacation, we did some research, and we asked for some negotiations, should we be there, and we were able to get really good promises, which we have already started on our campaign in terms of medical benefits for our teachers. We got some discounts, promised discounts from some of the providers, as well as housing. So we got some promises for housing as well as vision wear.
Okay, all right. Well, Eric Floyd, you are going up for the position of treasurer.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about your background in the teaching service as well, before we talk about why it is that you are part of Team Renaissance.
Well, I have been in the teaching profession for, well, close to 33 years. I am presently an administrator at a school in Moruga. And I have been active in the union for quite a number of years. And I have a unique skill set. I am an ACCA affiliate. So I see that as being really suitable to managing the finances of the association at this time.
Some will say, well, they don't have much to do, teachers ain't getting paid much, so there's much going into the coffers of tutor in the way of union dues and so on. Unlike, as we just heard from Ms. Saga Ramnarine, you hear about the money flowing in the oil and gas sector. And remember, everybody breaks from saying how the wastage that went on at Petrotrin, but slowly but surely it gradually comes out. And as we heard from the gentleman, Mr. Van Dyke as well, as to the level of wastage by the billions of dollars, and get away scot-free. But anyway, that's a different point. But getting to the issue, Mr. Floyd, I mean, obviously you feel you'll do something better. You feel Team Renaissance will make a difference.
Yes.
In what way? In what way can Team Renaissance make a difference if the finance minister he has no money, more money to give all you?
Well, in terms of giving the money, that will relate to the individual teacher. But in terms of the organization, I must say that the outgoing treasurer, Mr. Chiwan Durga, did a fantastic job in managing. And I want to continue in that vein and do even more. I don't know to preempt any question that you may ask, but...
Preempt, go ahead.
Okay. We have recently opened our administrative building at Carlson Field, part of the Teacher Center, phase 1 of the Teacher Center. With that opening, what could happen is that our office in Kirep could now become a revenue center for the association in terms of bringing revenue to the association and thus being able to afford more services to teachers. All right? So
let me bring in the presidential candidate back into the discussion, because with the greatest respect to all that I would have, and you mentioned the millennials. I could imagine our millennials saying right now, you want to hear all of that? You know, I want to know, what about my salary? What about my terms and conditions? What about my safety in the school environment? How are you prepared to deal with that?
Well, Team Renaissance has developed for a manifesto that touches just on those things. Good. In terms of the salary negotiations, in terms of health and safety, those things fall under the portfolio of the second vice president. Mr. Ronaldo Rollocks is our candidate. Ronaldo, as the district field officer of Port of Spain, has been visiting schools in the district to address safety issues. But we are not only looking at safety in terms of physical and plant matters. We are also looking at safety in terms of health and wellness, mental health safety, emotional safety. This month, as we know, we have Mental Health Month being observed. And there are many situations where teachers find themselves overly stressed, where we feel as if we are not receiving the support that we need to get from different stakeholders. Our aim as we enter office is to ensure that we have support systems for teachers, either by ensuring, for example, that the AP program, which is available, is bolstered, and that we as union provide additional mechanisms for teachers. In terms of salary, we know that we always have to ensure that we are on top of salary negotiations, and the work necessary to get that done, we intend to do.
But just on that point, is it that you're trying to promise something that you can't deliver, in the sense that, as I said, because the teaching service is something that it's a government-run, so if you understand what I'm saying, that everything that goes through the CPO and the finance minister and so on, can you promise better terms and conditions, and essentially the finance minister will say, well, you could say what you want, we don't have the money to pay it.
And essentially, Fazir, that is the essence of negotiations. Financial management practitioners and theorists will tell you, for example, that you want to invest, you want to build, you want to develop capacity. You don't wait until it's at the peak of the financial boom. You start your journey towards improvement and betterment of conditions even when it seems to be at its lowest, so that when things improve, you are able to sustain that momentum. Similarly, once tutor gets into negotiations with the CPU, we understand that we have to push to ensure that our teachers have a living wage. Remember, we are living currently on 2014 salaries. Gas prices have gone up. Food prices have gone up. Cost of living has increased. And so these cannot be empty promises. The union, as the advocate and representative for teachers, has to ensure that by any means necessary, that teachers receive that living wage and that those improved benefits that they need to get.
I'll leave a final minute for you to have a final say to the prospective electors for the election coming up on October the 22nd. But I'd like to get a final perspective from our other two guests, because the presidential candidate has used the term "by any means necessary." To you, what does that mean, Ms. Sagaramnayan? If we're talking about effective representation and ensuring that teachers not only get their just due, but feel effectively represented by the union, what does that mean to you?
I will take it in twofold. First being, we have to be persistent. We can't just sit back and say they're not going to meet with us, or we cannot get anything done, as well as communicate with our membership. Because currently they don't know much of what's going on in the union, and they should always know what's going on in the union. And we intend to deal with that. The communication, we have already, we launched an app that we have made available to all teachers, which helped us to communicate, because we have in AYA we have FAQ questions, as well as we have other resources for teachers on the app, as well as we are looking at live streaming for general council meetings, as well as DSRA meetings for our teachers, so they'll know what's going on in the union.
And Mr. Floyd, your own perspective on that, as far as, because of the many different challenges within the teaching service, within the education sector in Trinidad and Tobago, that actually it could be an overwhelming experience. Why do you think Team Renaissance offers that hope, offers that difference? What perspective would you like to leave us with this morning?
Well, I have a different perspective. I look at how the Americans operate when they go on the offensive in any country. And their philosophy is to win hearts and minds. All right?
And if they don't, to blast everything out of sight.
Well, let's win the hearts and minds first.
The hearts and minds first.
So that our job is to convince the public of the value that teachers bring to our country. Right?
Using the American analogy, that's an interesting one. Okay, but let me leave the final word with Antonia Tika de Freitas, the presidential candidate. And what would you say to the other members of the teaching fraternity come next Tuesday, as far as convincing them?
Team Renaissance Fazir is all about reconnecting the leadership with the membership. That has been our campaign mantra, so to speak, so that when we want to communicate, we have ensured that our General Secretary candidate, Mr. Wayne Grantham, as Sharita said, has established the app to enhance that. We also aim to enhance professional development within the organization, and that falls under the portfolio of the first Vice President. Our candidate is Ms. Hannah Lakraj Maurice. At the end of the day, what you want for teachers, for members, is fearless leadership. As my colleagues mentioned, you want to make sure that not only amongst the members of the public, but within the fraternity itself, teachers feel valued and appreciated. And we do believe that by making the efforts to reconnect with the membership, that we can boost the morale, we can motivate teachers, we can demonstrate to teachers, listen, your union is willing to stand with you, stand behind you and support you, and to work on your behalf. And we of Team Renaissance, having formed that synergy, having developed the ideas as part of our 100-day plan going forward, right after the elections, you have to start working. We believe that we are best suited to bring that change, to bring tutor into the 21st century.
So it's really like American, like Trump 100 days. Now you have the Team Renaissance
Always,
100 days.
100 days.
But let me just ask you this question very, very quickly. What is your view on the state of negotiations right now that actually led to teachers going out on the streets almost 3 weeks ago? What's your view on that?
Well, we would have had for some time before the CPO saying that they had not received instructions from their principals, from the Ministry of Finance, to negotiate. However, there always needs to be, as I said earlier, that capacity to engage the stakeholder, in this case to engage the CPO. Therefore, the work that needs to be done, we will continue as Team Renaissance to advocate for it to be done and ensure that once we are in office after the 22nd of October, that we do what is necessary for negotiations to go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for being with us this morning. So we'll await how it goes. The election is not too far off now. The countdown is on to Tuesday, and it's not going to disrupt school, is it? It's not going to. Because we had enough disruption of school already.
Well, sometimes.
Or you had no school last Friday because of the conference and so on.
Well, the conference actually, Fazir, is part of that professional development thrust that the union has had for teachers for many years. Remember, we are not only a union for negotiations, we are also the representative professional body for teachers. So once a year, we have that.
Well, people watching me cut time because we're going over time anyway. So I wouldn't delay you too longer because I know there's more campaigning to do heading towards the election on the 22nd. We'll take a break and we'll continue right after that.